main general tips, the success factors of the whole, during the whole process, throughout the process. Okay, first, well, this is quite obvious. Definitely having a comprehensive legal and policy setting would help. It is not a self-sufficient success factor by itself, but at least it will definitely legitimize the process, okay, without needing much further legal argumentation. You know, it's like the law says that we need to do that, so we do it, and that's it, which is a relief, right? The second one would be support and formal commitment from top management positions. So we really can say that lacking these is a major risk of the process. Okay, not having the commitment of top management will undermine the legitimacy of the process, definitely, and will undermine its relevance. Okay, so we really need to make gender equality a priority for them. And for this, if you need some arguments to do so, some practical tips here also, you can find a whole set of them in the gear tool. You have the reference at the end of the presentation, okay? We cannot go through them, but you have a whole set there, so it's nice to go and see how can we explain not only all the steps, but also the arguments to defend why we need a gender equality plan, okay? Then we need to balance a top-down and a bottom-up approach. Okay, we know that a participatory approach demands working from bottom to top, but we also know, as we just said, that we need engagement from top leadership, because this is what will open the way. This top-down approach will open the way to implementation, and otherwise we won't be achieving half of our goals, probably. Okay, this is also part of the lessons learned. Okay, that these actions that could bridge top-down and bottom-up approaches, this is the actions that have a greater impact. Okay, like putting work in a participatory way together, the top leadership with the middle management and with just the general researchers of the organizations. Then, well-equipped supporting structures. So to start with, to have a gender equality body in our institution, that of course should be well located and so to be well-equipped and funded. Or if we don't have such a body in our institution, then maybe other structures, like for example, having gender equality officers or focal points or things like that, okay? And this is also important because think that some really challenging measures will require not only time and of course expertise, but also other resources, like being well located in the organigram of the institution. So we have strong communication channels with other components of the institutions, or just like having the authority, the formal authority to place specific issues on the agenda and so on. Okay, so then we also need the community members' engagement, and this is crucial for sustainability as well. Okay, and for appropriation. It's important to involve different categories of agents and of stakeholders and actors here. So we'll need appropriate participation channels here, and think of participatory methods here to do this. And of course, another success factor is having sufficient funding. So, and to allocate enough resources to our process, right? And at last, identifying and managing resistances is going to be definitely a success factor, because resistances are the main blockages to change, okay? And also because they help us understand many times the challenges that we are facing and the opportunities also that we have in front of us, okay? So with this picture of the main general tips and the success factors, let's go into our first step, okay? Which is getting started. So, key aspects of this step, of this whole phase. First of all, when starting with our institutional change process, take into account that context matters, okay? And you already highlighted this in one of the groups last day, that no institution is the same. So the plan should be definitely tailored to fit our local conditions, okay? Which means that understanding our institutional context would be the first requirement for a successful plan, right? And this includes from its history, to its size, to its areas of specialization, its structure, of course, and its culture, as we were talking Thursday. Okay, so the process should be adapted always to the context. Then the second key aspect would be to map our actors, to have a map of our main actors and stakeholders. We really need to be aware of the importance of stakeholders and change agents in general for this. And we need to ask ourselves what people might be key agents of the process, and in which step and for what, okay? So that would be like people in power position and experts and so on, okay? And answering this question also requires the recognition that there are different kinds of knowledges. So think what type, what kind of knowledge, what kind of skills, and also what kind of attitudes do we need for our process, so we can think of specific agents here, right? Then we need to identify our potential allies. This is the people that can support you, with whom you can team up, okay? And here I like to quote this expert on diversity, Jean-Michel Monod. He explains how we should not focus all our energies in trying to convince all these resistant people, that we many times do that, but let's just focus on building like strong nets with our allies, okay? This is what is really going to help us moving forward, okay? Then we need to find funding and resources. We just said this is a success factor. So you can do this either by looking for a European project, or if not a European level, maybe similar initiatives at national level or regional level. But also you have to look for funding at your own institution, okay? So at all levels. And that means that you should also look for some measures that can be already put in place, and they have already resources. So related to gender equality, of course. So we can think how to count on them and how to join forces with other initiatives, okay? So all kinds of fundings and resources we need to look for here. Then, of course, we need to network at national and at international levels. The Horizon 2020 program, what shows is that it's definitely working to join forces for implementing and for developing gender equality plans at European level. So just look for other institutions, other European projects, other regional networks, other national networks, you know, look who is around that could help us. And then we also need to clarify the mandate. And this means also to make our mandate public and to make it visible. Remember the principles, okay? We need not only a clear mandate that we're going to do this gender equality plan, we're going to do this process, we have the commitment, but also we need to have that commitment endorsed in a public way, okay, formally endorsed by decision makers, okay? We really need to have a clear mandate on this.